Right? Fomites are so this is another medical term that's used. These are non-living objects that can harbor and transmit a pathogen. Okay? So, this lab table right here, this lab table can be a fomite. Right? Because there could be a pathogen here that that could get transmitted to you. Right? In a healthcare setting, bedding can be a fomite. Surgical instruments not properly sterilized could be a fomite. Lab tables, bottles. Okay, these are all non-living objects that can transmit a pathogen. Right? Now there are studies that show that your smartphone or your cell phone can be a fomite. Right? Probably pathogens right now on your cell phone. We all have pathogens, and now they're on your cell phone. Okay. Right? You can, and there are cases where you can spread colds that way. Right? Phones. Okay. And then just another way, another route of transmission is often mentioned is droplet transmission. So this is sprayed by droplet device. So when I'm talking right now, if I have a pathogen, like if I'm sick, right, I can spread that pathogen by my droplets that spew out as I'm talking. Okay. I'd be contaminating the entire room right now. Right. That would be droplet transmission. All right, so another aspect of how we can spread disease, or how disease gets spread, is by vectors. Okay, so we kind of learned a little bit about this indirectly last week about vectors. These are organisms that can transmit disease to humans. Usually, they refer to insects. Okay, so you can have a mosquito vector. All right. Now there are different ways that you can transmit through a vector. One is by mechanical transmission. So this is if let's say the insect has that pathogen hanging out on its body parts, and it kind of lands, like let's say on your food, right? That's passive transmission. Okay? If the pathogen has to be more actively involved in the life cycle of the organism that's transmitting the disease, then it becomes biological transmission. So, what that means is that in order for that infectious agent to be transmitted from, let's say, from the carrier to the host, right, that particular agent has to complete part of its life cycle in the vector before it's able to infect the host. So it's required to actually live inside the host for a while before it can, live inside the vector for a while before it can be transmitted to the host. Okay? All right, so we think about last week. Okay? So let's talk about the parasite that I once upon a time, a long time ago, studied. Right, that would be trypanosomes. So let's say we have Trypanosoma brucei. Okay. What disease does that cause? What's the name of the disease? Yeah, African sleeping sickness, right? So this causes the African sleeping sickness. Okay. So in this case, what would be the vector? Yeah, tsetse fly, right? Has an unusual name, tsetse fly. That's actually the vector. All right. Okay, so that's an example. This is an example of biological transmission because the Trypanosoma brucei has to spend part of its time inside the tsetse fly host or tsetse fly vector. Okay, before it can spread. So that's called biological transmission. Any questions about this? Okay. Now, what would this be an example of? So this is this is a housefly that is carrying all these nasty diseases. So let's focus on the first two, hepatitis A and typhoid. Okay, right? So it carries that, it can spread that disease. Would that be mechanical or biological? And it's actually mechanical because so usually the way this goes that this was hanging out on some dung heap, right? And it flew on top of your food. Okay, so whatever is on that dung heap is now on your food. Okay, so that housefly could be a vector. In this case, a mechanical vector that's spreading the disease passively from one place to another, and then to you. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. All right. So let me mention some. Another aspect of the disease, and this actually is why we're spending the time to look at epidemiology, is because it allows us a gateway to understand emerging infectious disease, right? So first of all, let's think about what emerging infectious disease actually refers to. This is a new or changing disease that is increasing or has the potential to increase in incidence in the near future. Okay, so EIDs often refer to a disease that we think is going to rise, right? It's going to it can rise to a really high amount of cases. Okay. And it's a disease that we haven't really seen before. Okay. Right, so there could be a new form, let's say, of influenza. That would be considered an EID. Or it could be a new type of HIV virus. Right? That would also be an EID. Okay. So let's say, okay, so let me ask you this. If it were a new type of flu virus, right? So let's say you have this new type of flu virus. And let's say it causes lots and lots of cases, all right? Now, we've had flu, we've been exposed to flu virus before. Why is it considered an emerging disease? It mutates, right? And why is it that we can't, like, we've all had flu virus, we've all had exposure to flu. Why is it that we can't, like, knock this one off?
Stronger.
Yeah, so think about your immune system. What does that tell you about the new virus? Yeah, so would your antibodies respond to this virus?
Yeah.
Probably not, because it hasn't seen those antigens before. It hasn't seen that virus before. Okay, all right.
Is that the ABV?
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, so there's.
We talked about that.
Yeah, there's different designations we can use to indicate what type of antigens are on that virus. Right, so it's like H1N1 or H1N5. Those are some of the ones that we use.
With changing the codes.
Huh?
The variable.
Well, that's trypanosomes. Yeah, trypanosomes. That's another example where you could have different antigens. All right, so now let's look at at how we can monitor EIDs. One is the Centers for Disease Control, right, CDC. You can have the World Health Organization. You can have the World Health Organization, okay, or NIH. These are all different ways of different organizations that monitor EIDs, right? And that's an important aspect of their mission because, right, it's these emergent infectious diseases that can cause a lot of death if they're unchecked. All right, so let me say a little bit about the CDC, since that one is a major source of health information in the United States. All right, this is a central source of information on epidemiology in the United States. So it has lots of epidemiological information, and it's open access, right? Because it's government supported. It's open access. One measurement they make is refers to notifiable diseases. So this is a statistical piece that they keep. What notifiable refers to are the diseases that physicians are required to report to the U.S. Public Health Service. Okay? So there's a list of diseases, usually about 50 diseases, that if you were to find in a patient, you're required to report it to the government, right? To the U.S. Public Health Service. This is so that they can, so the reason why they do this is so that they can track the number of cases occurring in the United States. Right? So they can tell whether or not the disease is, let's say, increasing your area. Right? So let's say it's in Sacramento, so it can tell you whether or not that disease is on the rise in Sacramento. And moreover, they can also tell whether that disease is spreading to other areas. Okay? All right, so it's an early alert system to some more serious consequences, which are outbreaks, epidemics, pandemics even. Okay, they can get that. They can tell you that because you're collecting all the data. Now, there's a special publication that the CDC puts out. It's called the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. Morbidity and Mortality. So this gets us into another set of terms, right? The difference between morbidity and mortality, right? So, get my reference right here. I'm on the wrong. Okay, so what morbidity refers to? First of all, let me tackle the easy one first. What mortality refers to the number of deaths. Okay, so we hear about mortality. That's the number of people that die. Morbidity refers to the incidence of specific notifiable diseases. So that is how many new cases do we get for that disease? It's called morbidity. Okay? All right? Whereas mortality refers to the number of deaths. Any questions about this? Okay, I'm going to have you look at a worksheet right now. So I'm going to have you tackle that.